On today's episode, I'm going to be doing 4 trash to treasure makeovers on items that I have found either on the side of the road, really cheap at a yard sale, Facebook Marketplace, or from buying from a mystery auction. I showed you guys a bunch of stuff I got from a mystery auction a couple months ago, and I'm finally starting to do some flips with some of the things that were in that mystery auction. If you are new to my channel, then hello and welcome. My name is Corey. I am a wife and mother of 4. I have been doing YouTube for several years now, and just recently I opened up a booth at a boutique store where I sell a lot of my pieces that I finish here on YouTube, and I'm taking you along with me as I've not only flipped these to decorate my home, but also resell them as well. The first piece that we are working on today is this total trash to treasure dresser. It is actually a dresser probably from the late 1800s, early 1900s. It has the look of the Victorian era pieces that came from that time, but it does seem like it came from the tail end of that time. So I'm guessing somewhere around the early 1900s. And it was used as a kid's dresser and who knows what else. This dresser has been through some things. And it had, I think, 3 or 4 layers of paint on it. It was green, it was blue, it was pink, and then it was white. And unfortunately, when I started sanding it, I had seen a bunch of the green and blue showing through right away, and I thought, that's going to look really pretty. I'll just let that green and blue show through and do a really shabby chic, distressed look on this dresser. But the more that I sanded, the more I realized that those were the deeper colors and pink was under the white. So the more I sanded, the more pink started showing under the white paint. And so I had to switch gears, which is totally okay, and go ahead and paint this entire thing. There is no way that I was going to be taking all of those layers of paint off of this dresser. It would have taken me way too long, and we just don't have the time to completely strip off 4 layers of paint, and who knows what kind of paint they are anyway. I just didn't think it was worth opening up that can of worms. Plus, it's a little bit unrealistic for the general DIYer, and I feel like my audience here, you're all mostly people who are like me. You just like to do things on your own and fix things up in your own way and with your own abilities. So I don't like to do things that are too complicated here on my channel. I wanted to make sure that everything that I do is pretty beginner friendly, that you can just have a sander and go to town on something and then hand paint with a paintbrush or a spray can. Sometimes I do use a paint sprayer. It's been a little while since I have used one, but it's really humid here, so spraying paint is like almost harder than it is by brushing it on, because it drips so easily with all this humidity or gets bubbles or you name it. But anyway, I'm taking my orbital sander to this entire dresser and getting it as smooth as I possibly can. As I was sanding it, it was reminding me a bit of old house siding. So if you've seen historic homes with siding where you can tell that it's been painted a million times, it has marks of where it was chipped and things like that, and you can scrape off all those chips and paint it, but you're still going to see the texture of the fact that there are layers of paint there. And I wanted that same type of look on this dresser because, I like to tell the story of the piece. I'm not trying to completely make it look brand new again. This is an antique. We want it to look like an antique, right? So I thought that it would be important to keep that character, just sand it smooth, make this DIY friendly. And so I kept the sides white and distressed and sanded a little bit. I made sure to sand also the drawer slide parts to make sure that everything's going to slide really well once I do put it back together. Plus, with how many layers of paint there were on inside the sides of the drawer openings, I wanted to make sure nothing was going to stick once I did a whole nother coat of paint on there. So that's something to keep in mind. Another trick you can do when you're painting over something with drawers to prevent the drawers from sticking with the paint is to take a bar of soap, like Dove soap, and rub it along the drawer glide area, and it'll help it to glide nice and smooth. The handles were like a pressed tin. They were a very low quality for the time, which was what makes me think it was in the early 1900s. This could have been a reproduction from the Depression era, maybe even. I don't know. It's a very interesting piece because it's built similarly. And oh, and look here, it has a piece of newspaper in there from 1956. That piece of newspaper has been in this dresser since 1956. This thing was really overdue to be cleaned. Can you imagine something being in there since 1956 and it's never been cleaned out? That is something else. And we did do a very thorough cleaning on this dresser. I don't always film the cleaning part of my projects just because I feel like cleaning is boring and everybody knows how to clean. So, at least I hope so. But I don't always film that. You know how to clean something. I don't need to teach you how to clean something. The only time I show the cleaning part is if there's something interesting about the cleaning that isn't something you'd see every day. Like right here, I'm showing you that I'm using this brush on my drill because you may not know about these brush attachments that you can put on your drill, and it's something that I like to do when there's like a lot of cobwebs or a lot of dirt and dust kind of stuck onto something. So instead of taking a wet cleaner and trying to slide the wet rag around in there and just slide dust everywhere, what I do is I take that brush and I brush it all off while it's dry first. Then I go in with my shop vac and suck up every little piece of dust that I can with the shop vac, and that makes it to where once I do go to clean it, I'm not cleaning a bunch of gunk and pushing a bunch of gunk back and forth. I'm going to actually clean the surface now because all that debris is gone. And I have those brushes linked in my Amazon store, my description box down below as well. And these are really good for cleaning anything you have in your house too, or cleaning it's actually originally, I think, made for cleaning cars, like washing cars and scrubbing tires and rims and things like that. So it comes in a whole set with a bunch of different brushes. But now my husband's coming out to start doing some work on here to help me out. And my husband has actually quit working and he's a student full time now. So the only employment he has is working for Desert DIY now. It's been really great. He's always helped me anyway, though, so it's not really that different. He's wonderful at helping, and he's showing you here what I was talking about, how we clean it first and then go in with the shop vac. But we do have a 1-year-old, almost 2-year-old. Can you believe that? And then we have a 4-year-old, and then we have a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old. So when my 1-year-old has decided it's time that mama needs to come inside, that's when my husband likes to come out and start doing the work so that I can be with the little one. I am still breastfeeding too, so that does take up a lot of my time, and I think it's really important to take that time with my little one. Now it's time to paint. I am painting with a Melange paint. It is an all-in-one paint, and this is actually the first time that I've used this paint brand on any of my projects, so it was a little bit of a test run, I guess you could say. And it's supposed to have, like, you don't need primer or a sealer or anything like that. It kind of reminds me a lot of latex paint when you're painting like with regular house paint, so I feel like that makes it very user-friendly here. But it goes on with a little thinner coverage than you would get out of a thick latex paint. So you have to do several coats. But that is actually not a bad thing. When you do several light coats, thin coats, your paint finish is actually much stronger. And so even though I have to do 3 coats on here because it's not one coat coverage, the 3 thin coats is much stronger than 1 thick coat. So keep that in mind if you want to try out their paint. I'm not sponsored in any way. I bought this with my own money. And I actually don't remember the name of the color, but if you like a blue, use whatever blue you want to use. I love navy blue. It's one of my favorite colors. It's classic. You can pretty much put it in any type of decor that you have, whether it's coastal or bohemian or traditional or grand millennial. Navy blue does it all. It's a timeless classic color. And I thought that since I'm going to be selling this piece in my booth, that a timeless classic color is still a safe choice to do, even though it is a bold, bright color. It's still something that I feel like is classic enough to sell. And I had this originally priced at $129 in my booth, and I had a few people interested in it, but I need my pieces to move really quickly because I'm always making new content here on YouTube, so my pieces have to sell. And if they're not sold within a week or 2 weeks, I have to mark them down. So I marked it down 50% off. It ended up selling for actually $59.95, I believe. Sold pretty quickly at that price in a few days, but here it is all finished. We put chrome cup pulls on there that I got off Amazon. I'll find those again and put them in my Amazon store for you. But look at this classic beauty. It's not going to look brand new. This thing is an antique. It was a trash to treasure, so it's got some stories to tell. But I feel like, especially here in Houston, there's a lot of history here, a lot of classic historic homes, and this piece is going to look beautiful in somebody's home. The next piece that I'm going to work on is this little side table. It's too small to be a bedside table for modern sized beds and modern height beds in most cases. And that's originally what it was. It was a nightstand that came with an entire set that I have. And I'm actually going to do the bench seat that went with this set that goes with like a vanity desk. The vanity desk is going to be in a future video, not in this video, but sorry. The brand is Kindle, which is still around to this day. I believe this piece is from the 1950s, so it's not antique. I'm not too concerned about preserving its original finish because it's a little bit of an outdated finish. Not a lot of people nowadays will buy something that's mahogany, so I'm gonna go French country on this piece. The color I picked is Peaceful Blue, and I off camera cleaned this piece up really good, vacuumed it all out, and then I actually like to clean pieces that I'm going to paint with Lysol wipes. It sounds funny, but man, they really scrub really well, first of all, and they disinfect everything. So as a mom, I'm all about getting rid of the germs when I can, and so if I know I'm going to paint something, I will use Lysol wipes to clean it really well. And it looks like it's not clean, but it's just because it's really beat up. Another reason why this is a perfect candidate for getting painted. If you're somebody who loves mahogany finishes, you could have done whatever you wanted to do to keep this thing mahogany, but it would have not looked like perfect, I guess. It would have shown a lot of age, which is okay too. I mean, that's all right. I thought this shape and the silhouette it has and the handle it had was just perfect for doing a French country little table. Little tables like these are everywhere. You can always find them, and I swear everybody always needs them for something. The side of the table, or I need a little table here by the front door, or I need a little table in my bedroom next to the chair that I read my book in. So these little tables are something that sell really well, and you can price them pretty well too. So the paint I'm using is Rust-Oleum enamel paint. I want to make sure that I mention that it is enamel. So when you're painting that, you definitely have to follow the directions as far as recoat time is. So you have to recoat it within 30 minutes, or else you have to wait 3 days. And you have to. Do not break that rule because it will ruin your finish. Next, I'm taking some Rub and Buff, and I'm going to just slightly put this gold on there. Not perfectly. I'm just going to like rub it on there and kind of antique it a little bit. As it was just a bit too dark, and it was not actual brass. It was a cheap metal, and so it was turning copper actually, and that's why I wasn't too concerned about shining it up, because I knew when I shined it up it was going to look even worse. And Rub and Buff is an absolute miracle product. I have that in my Amazon store as well, or you can buy it at most craft stores. But I use 2 Q-tips together to apply it, and I want to mention also that you see me sanding after I painted, and that's because the humidity here makes for imperfections in your paint. Sometimes you have to fix it. But here it is, all finished in my booth. It looks gorgeous and shiny and smooth, and I don't have any other pictures of it because it sold insanely fast at $49.95. Third project for today is the matching stool that goes to that same set. It's the same Kindle brand, and there are a lot of valuable Kindle furniture out there as far as what I saw on Google, but they have to be in pristine condition, and none of this stuff was, so I knew that it wasn't super valuable stuff. If you're watching this freaking out saying I'm ruining the value, oh no, that's just not the case. This stuff really lost its value a long time ago because of the condition that it's in. If you see that white and orange dog in the background, we're fostering her, and we really need to get her a forever home. And if you know somebody in the Houston area that maybe lost their dog and is looking for another forever friend, or does not have a dog yet and is thinking of getting one, she really could use a forever home. She's a sweet little princess, but she just does not get along with a lot of other dogs. She gets along with my dogs fine. You see them together, and I don't have to worry about them, but she's so afraid of big dogs. Here, there's a little break in the bottom of the stool, which I didn't notice until just now. Kind of blended in. So I'm going to use some super glue from Starbond, and some spray accelerator to glue this really quickly. Had I used wood glue, I would have had to let it sit for another whole day before messing with anything, and had a bunch of clamps, and I wouldn't have been able to finish painting today. So I'm using the thick super glue, and it's going to do a wonderful job in this spot. I just sprayed the accelerator on there, and as soon as the accelerator is dry, that glue is going to be dry. So it's extremely fast. I love the super glue. I have it linked below too, and I have a discount code for you guys. And then I gotta make sure I get all that dust off of there, because if you're gonna paint, you can't have any of that dust on there. It'll show up looking like sand. And the next part I'm gonna do is shellac. So since this is made of mahogany, mahogany is a notorious bleeder. So it'll bleed that reddish tone out of all the paints that you put on here. When I sprayed that enamel spray paint on the last piece, I didn't have to shellac before using enamel, because enamel will seal in the parts that bleed. So it does that on its own, which is another reason I love enamel paints. And then I'll let that dry while I take the seat inside. I gotta take this off. I'm pretty sure this cushion was done either in the late 80s or early 90s. I swear I've seen that fabric on everything from curtains to toilet seat covers and rugs and shower curtains. I feel like that was on everything. But it's gross and it needs to go, and it wasn't padded enough for me to even consider keeping the padding. So I'm going to recreate a seat on here using some scrap pads that I had, which it turns out were the perfect size to finish this. I always try and keep all my foam padding if it's anywhere near big enough to use on something again, because that stuff can be a little bit pricey. I mostly get mine from yard sales, if funny enough, or Walmart. If I don't find one at a yard sale or something like that, I'll just get my 1-inch foam from Walmart. And I feel like, I could be wrong, but I feel like it's cheaper to buy the 1-inch foam and then stack it on itself than it is to buy the 2-inch foam. The underneath side was prettier, so I'm going to hide the bottom and flip it upside down. Then it's going to also preserve that maker's mark in there, and if somebody else later on wants to redo this, they can decide to flip it the other way around or whatever that may be. But I'm putting it on here with some spray adhesive. The brand that I'm using in the video is Gorilla Glue, and I'm not a fan of Gorilla Glue. At least not the spray adhesive one, but I'm too cheap to go out and buy a different can of spray glue until I use all this up. So you just have to use extra of it and then wait a little bit for it to get sticky, but Loctite is much better. Now I'm going to be using my staple gun to staple on some quilt batting over my padding. If you're new to my channel, you won't know why this is, so I'll explain it. And if you've been here for a while, I'm sorry to repeat myself. But if you put quilt batting over your padding, it helps to soften the edges of your padding so you don't see any weird shapes under your fabric from the padding. And this stuff is super cheap. Again, this is something you can buy from yard sales too, because there are lots of women who thought they wanted to be a quilter and later on decided they don't want to, and they had all these quilting supplies that they don't need anymore. So look for it on Facebook Marketplace, yard sales. Sometimes people are even giving it away for free on some of those Facebook groups. But it looks nice and smooth all around the edge of the cushion now. And then here is the fabric that I'm doing and the paint that I'm doing as well. I got the fabric at Hobby Lobby when they were having a 40% off sale, and I have been dying to use it on something. I had no idea what I was going to use it on when I bought it. I just knew I had to have it. I love lemon decor. I think it is such a fresh and happy, like bright decor. And then here I'm going to use that fabric swatch to tell me what colors are in this piece, to show you that this color does go with it. It is a part of the color scheme that they use to make the fabric. And that's a fun way to kind of get a cheat to pick out colors of paint to do with something that's fabric, because it tells you exactly what colors are inside the fabric, like a little key, like a map would have, but for the colors. And you can pick out your color scheme that way. And that color that I bought it from a woman's store that is in Old Town Spring. I think it's called Farmhouse something. I don't know. I think she has a blog. But she had it on clearance in her store when we went over there one day. And it was only $10, and it was a mostly full jar of paint. And you know I'm always hunting for a deal. And when I'm trying to get resale, I need to make sure that my overhead cost is less, because I like to be cheaper than most people when I price my things, because I know what it's like to not be able to afford stuff. I mean, we are definitely not rich by any means, and I grew up in poverty, and I just feel like it really stinks when you want to go out and get something pretty for your house, but everything is way over budget. And so I just like to think of the shopper that is like me, that has to penny pinch or just be budget smart. And I try to price my things fairly and make it to where it's affordable for everyone, so that if anybody comes to my booth, they can find something that works for them. So this bench I ended up pricing at $39.95, and it is not a huge profit. I know there are plenty of people who will tell me that I am crazy for pricing it that low, but to me, that was fair, and that is what I would pay for an ottoman, and I'm cheap. And so I just price my things to what I think I would want to spend on something, especially if I'm on a tight budget. I mean, Christmas just came and went, but I'm going to be doing 3 coats of paint on this. Yellow paint is notorious for terrible coverage. Just like white paint would be, you have to do a lot of coats. And this is a mostly yellow color, so I'm painting it over a dark color, which makes it even harder to get good coverage, which means definitely I needed 3 coats. And I could have even done 4 coats maybe, but I thought it was looking pretty good at 3 coats. Something else that I do is I always start my projects upside down when I can, and then flip them right side up and finish. I feel like this gives a better finish. It makes sure that you're not missing anything. When you have it upside down, you can see angles that you can't see when it's right side up. So starting upside down really, really gets you a good coverage, and it kind of makes sure that you're not going to miss anything. And I didn't film the 3rd coat of paint doing this because I feel like there's only so many coats of paint you can wash before you start getting bored. But I try to keep my videos quick and entertaining so that nobody gets bored over here. Next, I'm going to flip it right side up and do my last coats here. I'm doing the 3rd coat on the bottom right now, as well as the 1st coat from the top, and then I did 3 coats total from the top down on all the parts that weren't painted yet. Then I took my screwdriver and screwed back in those screws. I got really lucky because when I unscrewed this, the screws stayed in there so that I didn't have to put them in a Ziploc bag or anything, and they were ready to go to put the thing back together once it was done. The color of this green is something that I feel like you either love it or you hate it. So let me know in the comments section if you love this chartreuse color or if you hate it. My son was calling it poop color. But I'm going to add some extra flair to it by putting on a navy blue trim around the edge. It will help cover that little bit of a gap that it has here, which is normal and supposed to be there according to the manufacturer's way that they made it. But I like to go a little bit above and beyond, and I like things to be have a little bit more character, and I love the shabby chicness of adding a fun trim onto things. So I added on this navy blue trim, which I got for just a couple bucks at Hobby Lobby a long time ago. Their ribbons are the best. Their trim and ribbons they're the best selection of any other store that I've shopped at. And if you get it when it's 40% off, then I mean you're spending maybe $2 to $3 for an entire roll. That's cheaper than Walmart. Good old Hobby Lobby, man. They really have everything there. But I'm using a hot glue gun with fabric glue in there. You can buy that at any craft store, and I also have it linked in my Amazon store down below. Let me know what you think of this navy blue. I feel like navy blue and yellows and greens go really, really well together with traditional decor, or what they call Grand Millennial now. But I really love this color combination together, and I feel like it's classic, timeless, and it's also still a little bit fun and whimsy. Does that make sense? I'm kind of just throwing all the adjectives at this. Now I'm going to cut it to where it's exactly lined up with the other piece that I had started with, so that way when I stretch it, it looks like that ribbon goes on forever. Here it is, a close-up, all finished. I'm so glad that I finally got to use this fabric. I've been dying to use it, and here it is in my booth. I will show you a zoomed out shot of it later once I show you this last project. So these frames I got a long time ago from an auction, and they've been sitting in my garage for months waiting to be used for some kind of project. They have $3 stickers on them because somebody tried to sell them in an estate sale. They're actually really heavy too. I got them for really cheap, but it was in a gigantic haul of mystery stuff in boxes from an auction that I spent less than like $20 for a boatload of stuff. So if I were to really calculate it, I maybe spent like $1 for all three. I'm not sure. But I took everything out of them and I'm going to prime them with Slick Stick from Dixie Belle, which is just a super flat primer. You can just do chalk paint if you want to do that for this, but this is what I had on hand, so I'm using this. I'm doing that because after having to do so many coats of paint over that ottoman stool, I wanted to have some kind of white primer underneath this paint so I don't have to do as many coats this time. Now I'm going to use the glass to see exactly where I want to cut out some fabric. I want these 3 frames to match and go with that little stool that I did. And so I'm taking the glass frames and kind of seeing exactly how they would look if I cut them out. And then I'm going to decoupage the fabric onto the glass frames and create a faux painting look for inside these frames so that it looks like it's like a painting of these lemons and butterflies and birds and everything. I think that it would look really pretty, especially if I can get each one to look a little bit different. That way somebody can buy the whole set and decorate with them instead of having all 3 be the same and then expect for 3 different people to want to buy one of them. Does that make sense? As far as making money goes, that made the most sense to me. And I feel like having matching sets of things not only makes my booth look a little more cohesive, but it gives the things a better chance of being all purchased by the same person. So somebody may walk into my booth and see that stool and then see these, or vice versa, and be like, I want to buy the whole set. You never know. I'm always trying to do my best to make sure that my things sell really quickly. And something else that I learned recently with selling from a booth, I know a lot of you ask for my opinion about selling things in a booth. If you are somebody who is trying to make money off of creating an antique booth or just a vintage booth or whatever kind of resale booth that you want to do, make sure that you're getting your booth in a location that's getting tons of traction. So it's like they say about buying homes, it's always location, location, location. When you're having a booth that you're selling items out of, you can have the best booth in a store and be the best one there and have the most amazing things. But if they're not bringing in shoppers at that store and at that location, it doesn't even matter what you're selling. Your stuff's not going to sell. Another thing is to make sure that you are selling something that people would go to that place to buy, or that once they get there, they can't live without. So in my store that I sell in, I'm one of the only few people that sells antique and vintage stuff. I think there's like 3 or 4 booths of people that do that out of like 300. So a lot of the booths are things like clothes, earrings, candles. It's like going to a craft fair, but at a boutique level, like really cool stuff. Lots of clothes, mostly clothes, I would say. Really cool clothes and really unique clothes that you can't buy anywhere else, but it's very rare that you walk through the aisle and see people selling antiques there. So I thought this is going to be kind of a gamble because people who come here are not necessarily coming to buy furniture. And so my furniture sells really slow here. But I advertise it online and then I have people pick it up in the store. And so that has helped a lot. I would say that maybe all but one of my pieces of furniture sold because of Facebook Marketplace advertising it. Recently, that light blue piece sold on its own without me having to advertise it on Facebook Marketplace first. But that's the only thing that sold. And I priced that at $49.95, which is kind of high in my opinion. And it sold still on its own because it's small and somebody can fit it in their cart in the store. So keep that in mind when you're selling really big things. You need to advertise it in more than one place. So you can't just put it in your booth and think it's just going to sell by itself. Because big things take a lot of planning. Not everybody has a truck to come and pick up a piece of furniture, so they're definitely not going to show up at a boutique store like the one I sell my stuff in thinking that they're going to leave there with a gigantic hutch or something like that. They're just going in there to see what cool stuff is there today, and that's it. So really think about your audience that's going to be at the store that you're thinking of renting. And I pay $300 a month for my rent. I've had a lot of people ask what my rent is. And so just letting you know, I pay $300 a month for a 6x10 booth. And then I also have to do 10% of every sale. So they take a commission of 10% for everything that I sell there as well. But I still make a profit. I usually profit at about $600 to $700 after rent and everything that I spent. But here they are inside my booth, all put together, and I staged them real nicely with everything. I tried to keep them close together, but still staged like it's kind of in a house. I try to make my booth look like it's in somebody's house and really cozy and homey. And this is how it all turned out. I'll show you how I decorate all the shelves here, just so you can see how it kind of goes together. So I have lots of yellows and greens all put together, bunch of random stuff, but it goes. Thank you so much for watching my video today and supporting our business. I post twice a week on Wednesdays and Sundays. See you next time. Bye!